So, weddings. For a lot of people, weddings, they signify, two becoming one. They signify love. They signify romance. They signify happiness, joy, a time of fun, and a time of new beginnings in a person's life as they become one with another person. Weddings happen every day, all around the world, at any time. And it happens a lot more than people realize. So, let's begin on my wedding. So, when I was a kid growing up, I just knew that I wanted to have a beautiful wedding. I didn't even care how I got married. I just wanted someone who was going to love me for me. And I didn't even care what the guy looked like. I was like, you know what? I don't care as long as he has glasses. Yeah, I was into glasses a lot when I was younger, and that bled into my adult life. So there's that. I learned from a very young age that I liked guys with glasses. I'll just put it that way. So I met Bobcat. I'll call him that. I met Bobcat when I was 14. He was 16. I'm not going to go into our relationship, but then we broke up for 4 years. So in 2021, we got back together. And I was thinking, obviously, this is the man I'm going to marry. Which I kind of knew that when I first met him. When I first laid eyes on him, seeing his face, seeing this 16-year-old boy, I was like, I'm going to marry this man. So then the proposals and everything, it comes up. And I was like, I need to find a wedding dress because I was going to propose to him. So next year will be 10 years since we've known each other. So I was thinking, I need to propose to. So that's what we did. We went to Myrtle Beach on May 17th, 2022, and we both proposed. He proposed first, and then I had a speech, but I couldn't get it out in time. So I finally just pulled it out, and I just said, do you want to marry me too? A ring I had since June. That's just the beginning. Yeah. So, wedding planning. Well, the wedding is so beautiful. You got to think about behind the scenes. And behind the scenes, it's hell. Yeah. So, there's no such thing as a perfect wedding, let me tell you. So, for starters, finding a date was very hard. I was like, I need a date to know what to do for my wedding. And I always wanted a September wedding. We met on June 14th. Well, we didn't meet. We got together on June 14th. We got together literally when gay marriage was fully official. I don't know how else to say it. It became legal. Yeah, I'll say that. When gay marriage became legal in 2015, that's when him and I literally started dating. So, I wanted to do September 14th because even though it was June 14th, I never wanted a summer wedding. So, I always wanted a fall wedding or a winter wedding, somewhere in that. So, since fall is one of my favorite seasons, I was going to do September 14th. Problem was that was a Thursday. So everyone's like, well, that's just weird. It should be on Saturday. So finally, September 9th, 2023 was going to be the date. Then comes, finding flowers, finding bridesmaids, finding groomsmen, finding musicians, finding DJs, finding food, finding guests, finding invites. And yeah, it was a lot to do all at once. So I was working with a lot going on with all that. And my husband was working at his company, trying to climb up to become manager. So we were both just hardworking at the time. We barely dated each other. By dating, I mean we barely went on dates and everything. So I started going on Facebook. And let me say something, Facebook is your biggest enemy. And I'll explain why later in the video. I started seeing everyone else's photos on their wedding days. A lot of people I knew were getting married left and right in the last few years. And they all looked so grand, so beautiful, so majestic. They had, like, I'm not joking when I say this. They had like 15 to 20 bridesmaids. 15 to 20. And same with groomsmen. It's like, how in the world did you get all that? And, you know, they were magical. And then I started going on YouTube, looking up wedding videos and being like, man, alive, I want this type of wedding so bad. So I was going to get that. And that's what I was going to do. So I was supposed to ask my cousin to be a maid of honor. And I wanted to, but I wanted to get close to my brother's girlfriend, who later on became his ex. So at the time, I was inviting, it got to the point where I had 7 bridesmaids. And for starters, the 2, one of them being my brother's girlfriend, the maid of honor, they break up, and the other one was best friends with his girlfriend, his ex, so they took off. So that left me with 5. So I had this one friend that, you know, I was best friends with growing up in childhood, and honestly, she was kind of a bully, something I probably shouldn't have been with. So when I asked her to be my bridesmaid, you know, she was all over it. Well, earlier that year, she was, I don't want to say how old he was, but I'll just say this. He was between 13 and 15. I'll just say that. She was 21, and she left to a totally different state with him. Yeah, I'll just let you simmer on that for a minute. So then she was dating someone else that was like old enough to be our father. And I mean, I'm not against age gap relationships, okay? Let me just say that now, but when you go from literally a literal minor to an old man, it's like whiplash, you know? But then she got with the guy who was her age after she got away with the older guy. I'll just say that. She then got with someone her age. She was pregnant, and she then kind of just didn't want to be my bridesmaid anymore after a little argument that we had, because I was trying to tell her that see, nowadays bridesmaids buy their dresses, so I was trying to help her with that, and you know, it was just one thing led to another. So I was like, you know what, I'd love for you to come, but if not, that's okay. So I was trying so hard not to be Bridezilla, because I had seen that show a little bit. Literally all I was watching was wedding stuff. I was watching My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I was watching the first and the second one. I was watching Father of the Bride. I was watching just about every wedding movie you could come up with. I was watching it. Because I was stupid when it came to weddings. Like, I had no idea. And honestly, it was because I thought I would never get married, despite me wanting to have that dream wedding. I honestly thought I was never going to find someone. So every wedding that I had ever been to, I just didn't really pay attention. I just didn't think about it. Yeah, I wanted to punt my little self, like, across the universe, because I was like, great, I have no idea the first thing about a wedding at all. With bridesmaids, after I lost my friend for that. Then my 4th bridesmaid, she felt more like she was into photography, and so she finally just said that. She was like, look, this bridesmaid thing isn't really my thing. I would rather just photograph your wedding. And I said, you know what, that's fine. That's totally fine. So That's how I got down to 3 bridesmaids, and my cousin was the maid of honor. So we were trying to find a venue. And my mom decided, hey, why don't you guys just do a venue up in Pigeon Forge, like a chapel or something? So that's what I was trying to do. I was making millions of phone calls to everyone, like everyone there. And it was like, one was closed down since 2010, and Google didn't update that because it said that it was still open. So I was like, great. And, then we would actually go up there to physically see these things. A lot of the chapels looked like something from a horror film. No joke. So, eventually it got to the point where I told my mom, Mom, this does not look like a place for a wedding. This looks like a place where you'd get skinned alive and have your skin turned into a rug. That's what this place looks like. So there was that with the venues. And then there was this other venue, and I can't remember the name of it. It was very beautiful. Angel View, Angel Wings. It was something angel. I know that. If you probably looked it up, you'd probably see it. I think it was Angel View. I think. So the way up to Angel View is, you're going straight up a mountain. And I mean straight. It literally looked like the road from that SpongeBob episode where he's like down in that little unknown town where everyone goes, it just talks like that. Well, that's what it was like. That road straight up. And there were cabins everywhere. But there was nobody in them. Like literally vacant cabins left and right. And us just going up like this. It's like, what? I mean, when we finally got there, it was a very beautiful area. But we just didn't have the funds, and we were like, there is no way anybody's going to drive up that. There's no way. So we couldn't do it. Then I started looking at places in my hometown. There's a lot of venues. There's a lot of venues here, but the problem is you'd probably have to donate your kidney to get them. So it was like, okay, never mind. And, we didn't really have the funds to, have this big grand old wedding. So we were like, well, okay, that's something. So then finally, we just went to the very next best thing, and that was my church. The church that my then fiance and I were attending, so we just did that. So when it comes to planning, I will say this. My mom is, she plans everything at the last millisecond. I'm a planner. Like, if something isn't in a plan, and I mean, I know, like, plans fall apart. Don't get me wrong. I know that for a fact. But it's still nice to at least have some things so that way you know what you're doing. That's just my opinion on things. My mom likes to plan things at the last millisecond. And that's what she did with my wedding. My wedding was literally no different. And it really caused a big rift between my mom and me because of that. So we finally went to my church, and we asked our pastor if, he would like to officiate us. And he said that he couldn't legally do it because he didn't have a wedding license for our state, Tennessee. And so then we were back to square one. We were like, well, what are we going to do about a pastor? Meanwhile, the whole time I was looking at all this stuff while planning my wedding. I was looking at Facebook and YouTube, seeing all these beautiful brides and their handsome grooms, looking at them, everything. And I was like, wow, how am I going to do all this? So David's bridal comes. We had to pick out bridesmaid dresses, which wasn't really as hard as I thought it would be. Thank God it was not that hard. So we found some, and we went there. We went straight from there. And then there were colors. And at the time, I was going to just do like pastel colors. But then I realized, with it being fall, I kind of want darker colors. So I went with darker colors. So there was that too. Then came decorations. How are we going to decorate? How? So Decorations were something different. We had to go to a someone at our church who was doing flower coordinations and all that fun stuff. So that's what we did. We did that. And I'll name her Elle because I don't want to say her name, so I'll just call her Elle. Elle was actually very nice. Although there were times that she wasn't always reliable in some form, and it was so hard to get a hold of her. But I mean, in the end, I came to love her. Even though it was very hard at the time to get a hold of her, I still loved her regardless. So, finding stuff was a little difficult because a lot of the things that she went and shopped for, a lot of the stores were like mom and pop stores, which is fine if, you know, they were actually open and didn't only open at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. Yeah. But despite that, we also went to Hobby Lobby. And, you know, honestly, you'd be surprised by how much wedding stuff Hobby Lobby has. Like, they have just about everything wedding. Like, everything that can scream wedding, it's there. It's crazy. So, all that was going on. And, you know, during my time of trying to find wedding decorations and flowers, my then fiance was trying to find groomsmen, and that was difficult all in itself. So it was like, holy cow, this person doesn't do this person doesn't do that. And I was in the shower one night when my then fiance asked my brother to be his best man. And I was so mad because when I found out, I was like, you couldn't have waited until I was out of the shower to ask him? I mean, come on. I wanted to see that. Wanted to see my brother's reaction and all this stuff. So, my brother was best man at my wedding. And it was a lot of fun for that part. More on that. Thankfully, my brother had a tux, sort of, from where he was in JROTC for some time, so that was actually pretty easy. Then came birth control, that fun idea. So, for any newlywed couple, you need to think about birth control first of all, and be careful with which one you choose. So, when I first went to an OBGYN, she fully diagnosed me with having premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD for short. And that was great. I was so happy about that. I was like, finally, I know that I have this mental illness. You know, I know that I'm not making it up. And it felt so good to finally be diagnosed. So she thought of putting me on macrogestin, or loloestrin. And I'm sure some of you have probably seen that commercial online where they're talking about Lolo. So I was on that. So it was 9 months since I was on loloestrin. And those first 2 weeks were actually pretty good. But then came the worse depression, the harder way to lose weight. I was actually losing weight, and then I started taking that, and then it came back, like, instantly. So it was like, oh my gosh. And I was so mad. And I had went to the beach as like a last beach trip with my family, my last vacation with my family as a single person. The whole time I was there, I had a period for 2.5 weeks. That was during the beach trip and when I came back. So for 2.5 weeks, I had a period, and it was awful. And I actually had to call the nurses at my OBGYN, and I was like, is this normal? I've never been on the pill before, and I've been having this for 2.5 weeks now. I'm anemic. I can't function straight. And they were like, oh, yeah, it's normal. This is a first-time pill user, blah, 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 and it'll come back within like 3 months and all this stuff. Yeah, that was a lot of fun all in itself. So then came, after the birth control and all that fun stuff, it came how my fiance and I were trying to spend time together. We were both working a lot, and especially him. He was working a ton. And we didn't really have time to spend time together. Like, I think we only went on a date maybe 3 times a total of before our wedding. The total time that we were engaged, I think we went on maybe 3 or 4 dates. Yeah, that's something. So, again, I was still looking at all this stuff, all these videos on YouTube, all these things. All that wedding planning was stressful with looking for the flowers, looking for all this stuff. While she was an amazing coordinator, she was really hard to get a hold of, so it was like, holy cow, why is this happening? So I was really starting to fall apart. Even though I was working and I was trying to just keep things together. We were also planning on trying to look for another thing to look at flowers. So we went to this flower shop in downtown, and it costed $5,000 for flowers. Flowers. I'm not joking. And I mean, you would probably sit there and think, why are flowers so expensive? Well, you'd be surprised by how much weddings can rack up. It's a lot of fun. And again, I was seeing more people getting married, more people having the time of their lives, more people enjoying their weddings, cutting cakes, doing all this fun stuff. So my best friend since high school, I'll call her P. She had a baby, and she had a 6-year-old stepdaughter at the time, and I decided to make her my flower girl. And I decided to make my older boss's son, he was 3 years old, he's nonverbal autistic, and I made him my ring bearer, which he was so cute. He was like so handsome in his little tux and everything. He was so adorable. So, just a side note there. But, you know, finding a ring bearer and finding the flower girl was really hard. But then when I figured that, you know, her stepdaughter could do it, I was like, you know what, I'll ask her. She was very shy, and she's a very anxious girl, and she actually had to walk behind P to just be up there on stage because she was very nervous. But I mean, you could tell she enjoyed it nonetheless. Like, she was very beautiful and very pretty, and she actually had her hair in pigtails. So I was trying to lose weight, and I had my other friend A, who was also my bridesmaid, to do that. So A was, we were walking a lot in the mountains around here. So we were like, this is easy, no problem. I live in a very mountainous area, so there are mountains everywhere you turn. So we were like, well, this can work. So that's what we did. And finally, came time for the bridal shower. And if you think planning a wedding's hard, planning a wedding and a bridal shower at the same time is like hell blended together with fury. It was awful. So, we were like very last minute on things, and it was very stressful. But I mean, I still loved my bridal shower. A lot of my family was there, a lot of cousins, and we were kind of having fun for the most part. Then with bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, my husband Bobcat's bachelor party, for those of you who don't know about him, he is a shopaholic. He loves to shop. He loves going to the mall and shopping. Normally it's the girl that loves to shop, but it's him that loves shopping the most. I'm kind of thrifty when it comes to clothes and stuff, but him, however, he loves to shop. He's like, the more name brand it is, the better. And he went to the mall with his groomsmen, and my brother went too. So they went to the mall and shopped and looked at stuff, bought soaps, bought everything really. They were originally going to go to a place called Main Event, but Main Event had a business meeting, and I could just picture all these guys in suits just jumping around on trampolines. and like playing golf and stuff. I've never been to Main Event myself, but I'm sure those of you who have are probably knowing what I'm talking about. So then after the mall, they went bowling. And they bowled until like 12:30 after midnight. And he was having the time of his life. My bachelorette party was different. Yeah. So it was because P had her stepdaughter and her new baby, she couldn't come. Then my cousin couldn't come because she lived like too far and she just wasn't able to come at the time. So it was just her mom, me, and my mom. And I'm close to my mom, so I didn't really have a problem with it. And I'm like, she's a mother of the bride. She can come. So first came some of the problems. One, the room was on ground level. And it was on like literally the busiest side of the hotel. There were people constantly walking by. And it got so bad that we actually had to shut the curtains just to change clothes because there was always someone coming through. Our carpet started to get flooded. And let me say something, like 2 words about this hotel that have stuck with me. Carpeted water parks. Yeah, just let that simmer for a minute. Yeah, carpeted water parks. I can still feel the mold on my bare feet. It was disgusting. So, there was that. The hot tubs they weren't really crowded, but they weren't very warm-ish. So there was that. We had, I don't know why, but the lifeguards there thought that my friend and I were actually younger than what we were. He's like, hey, nobody under 12 is allowed up here. And I'm like, dude, I'm like 22. I'm gonna be 23. What are you talking about? And it finally, like, I had to actually tell him, I'm like, I'm 22. So it was like, how in the world could you confuse us for being little kids when, we were, like, women, obviously. So there was that. The water slides were fun, although I will say that I probably popped my back in a lot of places. Yeah. I actually felt like I broke a hip. It was so bad. And my friend A, she actually got cut on the water slides. Got cut. And I'm like, how in the world did you get cut? Our closet started leaking water all over the floor. And it was like, holy cow, how is this happening? It was, we started having storms. Really bad storms in the middle of the night. And I actually recorded it from the parking lot because I was with my mom and we went for a night walk, something that we like to do. We like going for night walks. Both of us are night owls. We can stay up all hours of the night with no problem. So that's what we were doing. So I was out there just watching the lightning storm, watching all this stuff. And finally that was the end of the bachelorette party. It was definitely something. I did have fun regardless. I did. I was just trying to live in that moment. And again, I was seeing all these other people on YouTube, on Facebook, talking about how beautiful their wedding was and just how majestic they were and all this stuff. And the more I was watching that, the more I realized, I wasn't becoming a bridezilla because I was trying so hard not to be that way. Like, it got to the point to where I just let everybody push over me. Like, no joke. Like, I would not cut people off from being a bridesmaid. I was just too afraid to do that. So I just let everybody else do it for themselves. And that's honestly how bad it got. And I was realizing, like, during all that time, I was like, I wasn't becoming a bridezilla. I was becoming just a perfectionist with my wedding. I was like, this is my dream wedding. I want this to be absolutely perfect. So then came food and the cake. That was ugh. My cake lady didn't even want to do it anymore. Like, she just snapped and just decided, you know what, I'm not gonna do it. And you'd be surprised by cakes here. Like, cake, like wedding cakes in Tennessee is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Especially when I was only 4 weeks out from my wedding. I was like down to the wire. I was upset. And I was like, I'm about to just go to Walmart and make my own. Like, I'm seriously to that point. And finally, a coworker helped me find someone. Then things started getting a little hairy at my work. And so I called Bobcat and I said, you know, maybe I should just not work right now because of everything going on with the wedding and having a hard enough time. And, you know, he agreed. So I was like, well, okay, here we go. So that's what happened there. And, you know, the birth control also wasn't helping me. I was angry. I was upset. And, you know, I was just mad. And I was starting to feel covetous towards all these people. Like, every time I saw a wedding video, I felt nothing but disdain. I was mad. I was like, how in the world did you get it so perfect? How? Every wedding video, every wedding photo, it hurt. And finally, September 9th rolls around, the day of the wedding. And, you know, there was a lot going on there too. A lot of the groomsmen didn't have their tuxes in order. One of them actually left to go to Walmart because he forgot to get a tie. So then he was like driving everywhere trying to find a tie while everyone was getting ready for this wedding. I was like, don't freak out. Don't freak out. And, you know, when you're the bride, everyone sits there and tells you, oh, you're the bride. Everything has to be about you. Oh, everything has to be about the bride. The bride has everything and all this stuff. And what nobody tells you about being a bride is it's the most stressful thing in the world, almost. Like, it feels like that at that moment. So then on September 9th, it just came to a head. I just exploded. I was mad at my mom because I felt like, I was like, you know, you've not really helped much this whole time. I'm the one that's done most of the planning. She gets mad, I get mad, and it just came to a head. So there was that. That was a lot of fun. So that whole time was something different. Just crazy. So I had to go get my hair done, get my makeup done, and get my nails done. Which I don't do my nails very often. Like, I used to do them when I was little, and I used to like paint them really dark colors because I was goth and seen as a young child. But I had my acrylic nails up to like here or something. So like, I don't know how you girls who do your nails often, regularly, I don't know how you guys live with acrylic nails. Like, especially the ones that are like up to like Freddy Krueger's claw. Like, how do you guys live? So I was having acrylic nails for that time, and it was like, holy cow, this is awful. Because I could do nothing. I could barely tap on my phone. I couldn't open doors. I had to like open my car door like this and open. It was awful. And I was having to do tanning wipes because turns out I'm allergic to the ingredients in spray tans. Go figure. So this was actually what I looked like for my wedding. Was that. And I took a picture of it and everything. So, I mean, my wedding was very beautiful. But I will say this, it was a severe thunderstorm. And I didn't know that. I didn't know we were under a severe thunderstorm warning. So I was out taking pictures with the bridesmaids and then with my parents. And I can remember seeing cloud to ground lightning, like literally just up ahead of us. And I'm like, Dad, it just struck the ground. And he said, I know, we're under a severe thunderstorm warning. And I'm like, great. So that was fun. And, you know, I was trying so hard not to get anybody to see my dress. I was trying so hard. I was like, I want my dress to be a surprise. Surprise, surprise. And turns out everyone was coming in just at that time. Like, literally everybody was coming. And my mother-in-law, she was walking around the church, and she looks over, and she sees me, and I'm like, come on. And I'm like, you're not supposed to see me right now. This was a surprise. Which, I mean, it was a complete accident that she came across me, but it was still, it worked. It worked. So then we were like trying to figure out stuff. My husband, my then fiance, Bobcat, he had to run all over the place, all over the church, trying to find all the groomsmen because they were all everywhere. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, you would think only 3 groomsmen would be easy to track, but no, it wasn't. And then you had 2 ushers, and one of them was missing at Walmart. So we were like, oh my God, why? It was so hard to deal with and everything. So finally, the wedding starts happening. My dad and I are just standing there getting ready to walk down the aisle, and he kissed my hand before handing me to Bobcat. And I almost tripped going up the stairs. My officiant was my cousin. He's pastored a church for years. And we were like able to just use him as an officiant. So finally, the wedding went swell. And the electricity even came off because, like I said, we had a severe thunderstorm. So it was like windy, pouring down rain, thunder everywhere, lightning everywhere. And it even shut off the power for like a good minute. And I was so upset. And from where I had just been under so much pressure, we went up to the wedding cake and we didn't have a knife. Go figure. So we're sitting there asking for a knife, and A's mom S came up and she's like, why didn't you have a cake knife? Why don't you have a knife? And all this stuff. She's just sitting there going on, and I finally said, I don't know. Just get one. I was like, I don't care. Just use scissors at this point. I was so mad. So, when it came to feeding, or not feeding, but like the cake thing where we do this together, we were actually very gentle with it because we had seen cake fails not too long ago where they literally got into a physical altercation because of throwing cake at each other. And the guy actually cut the bride. Like, he literally cut her arm with the cake knife. It was awful. And I'm like, holy cow. So we both were like very gentle with it. I didn't want a bunch of trouble. He didn't want a bunch of trouble. We just went at that. And you know, it was very fun. And my mom, her shoes started to hurt her really bad. And so, Bobcat was like, here, I'll give you my shoes. And she's like, no. And she thought he was joking, but I mean, he was like, seriously, you can fit my shoes. And I'm like, Mom, just do it. I mean, come on. There's no need to be this painful. But, we did bubbles instead of like birdseed and all that stuff. We did bubbles. And, you know, we just had a lot of fun on the way back. And during the honeymoon, it was something different. For one thing, we went during Rod Run. And Rod Run was like something else in Pigeon Forge during that time. I don't know why either, but there was actually a lot going on. And we were in a cabin. And you would think, you know, being in a cabin is like so romantic and everything. It was different. I'll just put it that way, because we got in the hot tub. There was a hot tub there, and we kept hearing weird noises coming from the forest. And we were like, we're going to go back in. Let's just go back in. I was so mad at some point because I thought someone was watching us because we kept hearing like these weird whirring sounds and these weird noises. And I finally just said, I really wish we could have just done a hotel. It would have been so much nicer than this. So that's what we did. But one thing about the honeymoon when we came back, I started to realize something. It had been a week after the wedding, and I was like, you know, was any of it really worth it? And the reason why I say that is because I remember looking at those wedding videos. Looking at those wedding pictures, looking at the beautiful brides, the beautiful grooms, all that. I was looking at all of it. And I was sitting there, the more I just kept watching and the more I just kept looking at all that, I was beginning to think, instead of focusing on everybody else's happiness, I didn't focus on mine. This whole time of me going and doing all this stuff, I was on autopilot. Like, even during my wedding, like, I still barely even remember my wedding. Like, I remember bits and pieces of it, but it was honestly like I was in third person. And even at some point, I was going to pass out because I was under so much stress. And it was hot. I mean, even though it was a severe thunderstorm, it was hot outside. In Tennessee, September is so like summer. So I was wearing this dress, weighing 800 pounds, it felt like. And I was like sweating a bucket. And I'm like, I'm ready. I'm about to pass out. I need air. So that's what I did. I sat in an air conditioned room for a while. But what I'm trying to say here is, instead of looking at everyone else's happiness, how everyone else had this life event. Because, I mean, a wedding, while it is about happiness, it should be about yours. Because, like I said, that whole time I was on autopilot. I didn't even have time to really think about the stuff I was doing. I didn't have time to enjoy myself. I didn't have time to appreciate, the times I had. I was so busy focusing on this wedding that I just became an outer shell of myself. And it's taken a while for me to come out of that autopilot. Like, it's taken a little bit. But don't try to obsess yourself with something that is just going to be a life event for you. While it is a good thing to have and a good thing to do, it's not worth losing yourself over. And it took me about 3 months to find that out. As for the birth control, I had to quit it because it was just becoming a nightmare. And I started hating myself. I started hating everything. And so I was like, well, I just need to jump off it. And that's what I did. So, another thing, this isn't a talk against birth control, against the pill. I mean, you can take whatever you want as long as it's not harmful to your body and harmful to your mental health, because whether people want to say it or not, birth control really does affect your mental health. I know because it did me. And this also isn't a review on low estrin either. If you are taking it, I mean, good for you. I hope it's doing good for you. It certainly was a mess for me. It certainly made me come to hate things a lot. And I think a lot of that had to do with me going on autopilot a lot of that time. So, for those of you who are planning a wedding right now and you just feel lost, I really hope this video comes across to you, because in all honesty, don't look at social media, don't look at all these other people doing all that. Just don't. Because in the end, you're just going to wind up hating yourself and hating those around you, when you should be happy and you should be having the time of your life, instead of, sitting there thinking, I want this to look perfect. I want that to look perfect. In the end, it's going to look perfect anyway. In the end, are you even going to remember those bridesmaids? Because let me tell you something. I've talked to a few of them, which one of them I have to talk to. She's my cousin. She's literally related to me. But, I mean, the other two, they're really busy. And, I don't have the time to talk to them either. So, in the end of everything, it's like you start thinking about things and you think, if only I'd just celebrated life a little sooner. If only I would have just lived in that moment instead of just constantly keeping your life in fast forward. I was going in fast forward while everyone else was still there. And, I lost a lot because of that autopilot. So, if you are planning a wedding, just try to look at yourself. Just try to think to yourself. Try not to be a bridezilla, but start being assertive. Start doing all this stuff. I mean, it's your wedding. You need to let it be however you want it to be. And if you have a problem, just kindly talk to someone about it. Don't be forceful about it. Don't be horrible over it and don't have an attitude. But, I mean, some things you need to stick up for yourself for. You need to be assertive over. And if it's your wedding that you're planning or someone else's wedding that you're planning, you need to be defensive about it. So, I guess, this is kind of like a little lesson here. I thought that, I was going to say a bunch of stuff and everything, but honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, the wedding, while it was beautiful and while it was perfect, it was definitely something. It was very stressful, and I didn't think much about my happiness. I didn't put my emotions first. Instead, I was too busy focusing on everyone else's wedding and everyone else's, how they looked, how the bridesmaids were, how everything else was. Make your own happiness. This is your wedding. Make it your version of perfect. Perfection. There is no such thing as a perfect wedding. No such thing. There's no such thing as a perfect bride. No such thing as a perfect groom. Perfection is like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. What some people find perfect, others find absolutely disgusting. Like me, for instance, I wanted a fall wedding. There are some people that would probably be weirded out by that. There are probably some people that would rather have a summer wedding or a spring wedding. I had my wedding at night. You might have your wedding in the morning. Regardless, make your own version of perfection. Make your own happiness. Because life is just too short to care about what others do for themselves. We are all just in this journey called life. So, I guess just ask yourself, are you enjoying yourself? Am I enjoying myself planning this wedding? Am I enjoying myself doing all this time? So, I guess just try to think about that. And honestly, I think I definitely learned something about that in my wedding. And that was definitely the big thing. So please don't focus on what anybody else is doing. It's your life. So I guess I'll just jump off here because of that. I was going to do a house tour, but honestly, my house looks pretty gross right now. I haven't had the time to clean it yet because I just woke up this morning. And my husband, I love him so much, but sometimes he makes big messes. So I'm usually the one that has to clean them up, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. But if you did like this video, and if you might have found this video any helpful, any future oncoming brides, just hit the like button. Also be sure you subscribe so that way I can get up to 600 subs. Check out my pages because I've got other content elsewhere. Instagram is where I mostly will promote stuff and mostly post about things. And be sure you check out my books because I've got a lot of books out there. So just check those out, I guess. But if you are new to the channel, welcome. I really hope you subscribe. I really hope you come to like my content. I plan on reacting to the Walton files at the time this video gets posted. Because right now is February 2nd. So I do plan on posting this video on the same day as I react to the Walton files video. So that's exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. I love Martin's content. Like, the way that the animation's so smooth yet so terrifying, it's like, holy cow. It's literally the stuff I grew up watching. Like, it's so nostalgic in a way. Yeah, a lot of people are probably like, what in the world did you watch growing up? But yeah. And if you're returning, welcome back. I love you guys. I hope I get more subscribers out of this whole journey. I mean, those of you who have been here with me since day one, I love you guys. I mean, you guys are absolutely awesome. I love you guys so much. um, for those of you who've read my books, I'm happy to have you. But I hope to see you guys, and God bless, and remember, this isn't goodbye forever. This is just goodbye for now. Bye. Also, this is my ring, everybody. Just wanted to clarify that. Yep, that's my wedding ring. I would show you his, but I don't have him in front of me right now.